everyone, before we get into the episode 5 spoiler review for Moon Knight, just want to give a big shout out to Carbon Health, who powers and sponsors the Outlaw Nation and the Geek Buddies. Thank you so much to them for continuing their sponsorship of our shows. We continue into the year of 2022. Carbon Health, you can go there if you want to get checked out, you want to get something, taken care of, you got some health issues going on, or maybe you want to do some preventative health stuff, then please take a look at their website, carbonhealth.com. See if there's a clinic near you. They got 100+ locations nationwide, 50+ locations in California alone, and they will take care of you. They want to work with you, create a health plan that works for you at your pace, at your budget, and they're incredible at doing that. They do believe that healthcare is a personal thing, and they want you to connect with a physician who will work with you to get you back into the best shape of your life. Lord knows I could use it, so I know some of you probably could use it as well. And if you've got anything you need to get checked out, you want to go and do that. Don't delay, don't wait, don't be a quote-unquote man about it. Go and get it done at carbonhealth.com. They have virtual care and personal care to help you out. So again, go to carbonhealth.com. And now on with the Geek Buddies spoiler review, episode 5 of Moon Knight. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a live spoiler review episode here from the
Geek Buddies.
It's not live. It's not live. It's taped. I know it's not live. I just like to don't fool the fans. Don't fool the fans. There we go. Yes, we're talking about Moon Knight. It is not live. We are taped. So just in case you were ready to send in a stream out or super chat, don't do that. We are taped here.
I thought we were live.
I didn't know if this was John Rocha, Stephen Grant,
surprising you.
Yeah,
yeah,
right, exactly.
Could have been Mr. Bean.
Well,
Mr.
Steven
Bean
is my last name, or middle name. All right, well, we're going to cover episode 5 here, Asylum, the penultimate episode. Next week is the end of the Moon Knight series, and from the submitted awards, I think we're looking at a one and done. From what it seems like a limited series here for Moon Knight, we're going to talk about everything that happened here in Asylum. I am coming to you live from CinemaCon. At least I'm recording it live. CinemaCon here in Vegas. To talk about it, so please excuse the camera and the janky mic that I haven't used in a very long time. But let's introduce ourselves first. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host, and co-host of the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor where you can see Strawberry Shortcake Berry in the Big City on Netflix now.
And joining us again this week to keep going with the Moon Knight. I mean, the Moon Knight has not thrown him off the train. He's still coming back to do these reviews. The great Mike Kalinowski. How are you, Mike?
Boys, I come for the Geek Buddies. I stay for the Moon Knight. That's how it goes.
That's right.
So,
you know what?
You came for the Moon Knight and stayed for the Geek Buddies?
No, I come for you guys. I don't care what you talk about. We're talking Moon Knight.
Okay.
All right, I'll stick around. I was giving you a compliment, McClung. Come on now.
That's nice.
I'm like, come on, he can't hear you in that banker's outfit he's wearing right now. Come on, give him a break. Give him a break.
Look,
we're gonna dive into
self-taping a bunch of stuff right now.
McClung.
Anyway, we're gonna break down everything that happened in Asylum episode 5 here, the penultimate episode of Moon Knight. It is a limited series, it seems like, from some of the awards considerations that it's gotten or was submitted for. So we're getting close to the end here. So much happened in this episode. We saw Marc and Steven working together to go through some childhood trauma from Marc's past, and we saw a brutal upbringing. We saw his mom. We saw him losing his younger brother to a drowning. We saw him kind of reveal what was going on here, what was the psychological break that caused Marc and Steven to kind of not be able to have separate lives now, which is what people have been asking. We had no Layla through the entire episode, which was kind of a bit of a surprise, to be honest with you. But in her place, so to speak, we got ourselves the goddess Tamatet. Tamatet was doing a lot in this one, going through the Egyptian underworld.
Towerette.
Sorry, Towerette. Yeah, it's a tough name. Towerette, fine. Anyway, there was a lot going on there with the land of the dead and people getting thrown overboard and what have you. So we're going to break it all down here. Let's start with you, Vogel. What'd you think of this 5th episode? We had such a great ending to the 4th episode. with possibly Steven Marc Steven / Steven being killed there in Ahmet's tomb, but then Marc and Steven showing up with in the asylum with all the different characters we'd seen already in different roles, and of course Dr. Harrow with Ethan Hawke. What'd you think of this episode?
Well, I loved this episode. Like, the episode was absolutely amazing. I love all the character stuff. I love all the backstory. I love the way they did it. I thought it was visually interesting. I thought they continued to fuck with us. Like, I'm pretty sure this is all going on in Mark's head, but like, who the fuck knows at this point? Like, there's been enough things thrown either way. So there's a lot going on in this episode. It's between the end of last week and this episode. This is what I like about my Marvel shows, like where it kind of throws me off balance. All that being said, I really am in the camp of Kalinowski as far as we're going to get to the end of Moon Knight after next week. And even if he is in that Moon Knight costume for the entire episode, we certainly didn't get a whole lot of Moon Knight. Yeah. And I think that the psychological stuff is interesting. I really like Marc as a character. I like Steven as a character. I think Ethan Hawke as Dr. Harrow is fascinating to me. Like, I love everything that they're doing, but I think there's some things that sort of maybe we missed out on that we probably should have gotten a little bit more of. But we'll see where we end like next week. So although I'm very, very on board with what they're doing, I do think when we get to the end of this one, we'll talk about a couple things they probably missed the boat on. Yeah,
I think you bring up an excellent point, Michael. It seems more of a character study than an actual origin story of Moon Knight. It's more of an origin story of Steven and Marc. Maybe not necessarily an origin story of Moon Knight, even though we did get origin moments of how Marc became Moon Knight with the negotiation with Khonshu, but it still wasn't quite what people have been asking for, which is a full-on Moon Knight series. Shannon, what are your thoughts on this? Do you feel the same way Michael does, or did this episode not work for you? You've been on the fence on this one as well throughout the whole series, so what's your feeling on this episode?
I enjoyed the heck out of this episode.
Oh,
this is looking at all the things that we apparently Samson did not agree with me. But looking at all of everything that Moon Knight has given us up until this point, I do feel like maybe this was not the way to tell the story, because like, had they gotten to this a little bit quicker, which, I don't know how you do that with what preceded it. But I loved the psychological aspect of this and finding out where his identity sort of split. I mean, this was just such a fantastic episode. And as Vogel said, I mean, I was a little iffy on the Marc Steven. Like, I don't really feel like there's a big difference between the two of them. Now I definitely see it. I mean, and maybe that was just something like folks saw it before I did, but I definitely, my eyes have caught up. I thought it was fantastic. Like, there were some really, really sad moments. And Ethan Hawke again is just doing. I think maybe he escaped the Harrow pop in, pop out curse that you brought up last week, John. Because him in this episode was just really fantastic. But I have no idea how they're going to bring this plane in for a landing at this point.
Right. I know it seems like a lot that they need to tie up in one episode. And certainly we are in the midst of a Hawke-assance, if you can say that. Certainly with all the stuff that he's got going on. I just saw Black Phone last night as we're recording this on a screening, and he was incredible in that. Chillingly scary. I'm like, this is the same guy from Reality Bites? What, are you kidding me right now? It was pretty good stuff. So great to see him doing so much in so many different arenas and so many different stuff right now. Kalinowski, you've been the biggest. I can say perpetrator of negativity. What would you say?
I would not say. I don't think.
You know what, Mike? He can speak for himself. You know, your husband can speak for himself. Kalinowski, go ahead.
Defending my man.
Okay. I recorded an episode of Sith Council this morning, and Harloff's like, "Did you see it? Did you see it? We got to talk about it." I was like, I didn't see it yet. He's like, "Best episode of Marvel television ever."
Oh wow!
Like, that's hyperbly, buddy. Okay,
I don't know if I would say that.
Yeah. He's like, and you're a crier. You cry at the drop of a hat. You'll be crying. I was like, okay, sets it up. And I'm a big enough man to admit when I'm wrong or whatnot. This was by far my favorite episode of the show.
Okay,
this was the series I wanted. Like I said last week, I think Oscar Isaac might have been miscast, but it was never his acting. He's always phenomenal. The acting, I mean, the origin, we get a little bit of Raoul Bushman in there. He talks about him, but the shot of him at the base of the altar, like that's right out of the, that was gorgeous. It's like, just give me, that's all we needed. So I'm looking back in these past 4 episodes and I'm like, I didn't need Marc in the museum with the girl trying to take him out on the date. I didn't need Harrow with the Bavarian pretzel village. Like, none of that matters where we are right now with this episode. Like, you could have done one episode setting up what we get to this. Like, and I didn't care Moon Knight didn't show up. Couldn't care less in this episode because it was.
Well, he did show up in the origin moment. He did, but not didn't fight or anything like that.
Right, nothing like an action beat or anything. Because I'm saying like that episode, they made a big deal. I know it was because the actor had passed, but they had said he plays his character's Midnight Man, and they thought, oh, he's going to be Midnight Man. And so his episode was kind of a throwaway with him going to get the thing. Like, I don't know. I like this episode seems like the pitch of the show when they were pitching it. Like, this is what we want to do. And then they built out around this episode. And it's just like, this episode I'll watch again. Absolutely. The others I'm kind of like, but also I'm like, and like last episode, people were talking the Mummy and this and that and Raiders. Like, this to me felt like Raiders, but something new with it, like the boat with the dead. And when he's crawling back to it, like, that's just awesome. And do you guys feel this? Like, I feel like Jake is the piece that's going to balance the scales. Like Jake's heart. I don't know.
The scales were balanced at the end.
The scales were balanced by the end, but I mean, I think we saw Jake in this episode.
Oh, I thought so too.
Well, Jake doesn't have him. I don't. Where did you see Jake?
When Steven's running and the two of them are standing there talking, and there were three of them.
No,
right?
In Dr. Harrow's office, there is a very specific part where Oscar Isaac stands up and is like, "Hey, you're a really good doc. I feel like I'm good. I'm all." And he is absolutely not talking like Marc Spector, and he's absolutely not talking like Stephen Grant.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that's the first that we've actually seen Jake. Like, that's my guess.
Yeah, that might be right because
I have no clue.
Yeah,
but I love this episode. So I admit it. I didn't like what came before it, but this episode, just fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah. You know, and so some of the people leaving comments about Kalinowski, look, he's honest with his opinion. And if you got a problem with honesty, you probably shouldn't watch critic shows or reviews because that's where people are usually dropping their honesty, just letting you know.
Like, people get upset. Like, come on, man. Like, I didn't like it. It's not what I wanted. That's okay.
Right.
That's life.
That is okay.
I don't have to
like
everything.
People got mad at Star Wars about different movies. So, you know, you're allowed to not like stuff. But you're also willing to admit when you do like something.
And
so that's what I think
fantastic.
Absolutely.
Fantastic episode.
Absolutely. Yeah, I liked it too. The visuals here were really stellar. The back and forth, the conversation, certainly the stuff with the brother. Certainly, I got very emotional about that. The heartbreaking stuff with his mom and with his dad, who, by the way, should get a shout out as well. Not always easy to do nonverbal acting, as Shannon McClung, the actor on the crew here, will tell you. Nonverbal acting sometimes can be the toughest acting because you're trying to show so much emotion, so many levels, so much in a relationship here, with just a gesture or a move or a wave of a hand, things like that. So certainly I liked. He looked a little close to Al Madrigal for me, but I still enjoyed seeing him play the dad a little bit. But yeah, overall, very much enjoyed it. As someone who's been through therapy, some pretty intense therapy, I thought this was really fantastic to explore. And some of those things that were brought up by Harrow, you can see how a therapist or a psychiatrist might twist those things into some negative actions. And so I loved how they were playing around with that, really walking the line and the tightrope. And we got to see some more from Oscar Isaac and Marc breaking down, showing us his vulnerability as well, which I really enjoyed. All right, so I'm doing this on the fly, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm gonna do the best I can with this in terms of kind of doing storylines here. Mike, I'll go back to you here. So let's just deal with the Marc and Steven stuff. That was the big thing here throughout. You know, if he finds out that he's dead, that he actually died. We do find out, though, that later he's just got a bullet. He's got to come back from this bullet in his body to get back above ground there to figure out what he's going to do there in the tomb and confront Harrow. But we get so much here with Marc and Steven, navigating the memories, navigating, as we mentioned, the stuff with his mom, the stuff with his brother, figuring out, and Steven seeing the moment of his origin, in essence, a Steven origin story in this as well, where he is born from a moment where Marc is saying, it's not my mom, it's not my mom, it's not my mom. As she bursts through, he creates a whole new character from which to exist. And Steven confronting that with Marc and being told by Marc, yes, I created you, but you got to live the better life than I did. You don't want to live the life I have. You don't want to see what our mom did to us. You don't want to see any of this stuff. But then Steven, by the end, embracing more of being Marc as he's fighting off those souls on the boat, on the ship, as Marc would do. In the end, though, it leads to him being thrown overboard and staying possibly in the world of the underworld. So, Mike, what did you think about how this journey went about in this episode between Marc and Steven and discovering all these emotional plot points between them?
Yeah, I think when we get to the end of the series next week, series, limited run, season, whatever, I think when we break out what we liked, what we didn't like, I think that at the very top of the like list is going to be the Marc and Steven relationship. I think that whether you started this series at the beginning, like me, where you really liked Steven Grant right off the bat because I wasn't really a Moon Knight person. And Marc, I didn't really get a sense of because he's so closed off for the first 4 episodes. He reveals no information. He like says nothing. Or if you're like Kalinowski and all you want is more Marc Spector and Steven Grant's not your guy, I think wherever you start, it's like these are two characters that really don't like each other. Don't like that they're inhabiting the same body. And I think that from a writing standpoint, a pacing standpoint, and a plotting standpoint, and an acting standpoint, they really sell you on these two coming to understand each other. And that really is all about this episode. Like watching Steven understand where he came from, but also understand why Marc created him, basically, and seeing what Marc has dealt with, and watching Marc just break down and just repeatedly say, let's not go into this room, let's not touch this, I don't want to go here, to the point where he throws a childlike temper tantrum and is like, no, you can't make me, you can't be like that you're just breaking down wall after wall after wall, and seeing the two of them. And like I don't think you can understate, I mean, I know Shannon just said it, but you cannot understate how amazing it is to watch two Oscar Isaacs acting next to each other. And from a visual effects standpoint, it's seamless. But more importantly, from a character standpoint, I completely see these as two different people. And so completely accepting and believing that these are two different people and watching them come together, like, I think that's the heart of what this episode is. Like, the fact that Marc was trying to save Steven at the end, and then Steven steps up to the plate, finally has his action moment, and kind of makes a sacrifice to save Marc, who he 2 episodes ago probably would have been happy to let go over the edge of that ship. I think that's what makes this episode really, really land emotionally.
Okay. What did you think? Let me go back to you on this. What did you think about how they handled the stuff with his mom, like the stuff with his dad, the stuff with his brother? We hear from the first beat of this episode, we hear a child crying for help in a cave. We see the water. All of that is foreshadowed for what we're going to get in this story. And then seeing Oscar Isaac break down in the middle of the road and then immediately become Steven. How insane was that to watch as we were going along? And what did you think about this backstory with him? As someone who hasn't read or, has read too much Moon Knight, what did you think about this backstory?
I really liked it. Correct me if I'm wrong. In the comics, it's his father who dies, not his mother, I believe, right? I think.
Mike Kalinowski?
I was trying to remember that during the episode because I was like,
I think it's his mom. I still think it's his mom, but it might be his dad.
I believe it's his father. Like, I think that, like, but well, also because in the comics, for sure, like, the origin is not my little brother died when I was a kid, because his brother is also a mercenary and goes down his road. So regardless of who dies, like, I accidentally did something, my brother died tragically and my mom blames me for it. That's all new for the series. And I think it's great. Like, I think really seeing this, like, super tragic moment, seeing this really traumatic event. I mean, like Johnny, you said, as you've done therapy, and like a lot of therapy really is going back to those moments. And like, look, for Marc, this was a super, super seriously traumatic and abusive event. But even for people who, like, anyone dealing with any anxieties you have, any issues you have, any of your issues, you usually track that back to something that happened when you were very young, where there's a young version of you in your head that is still believing a thing in your 30s and your 40s and your 50s. And so I think, like, they really visualized that very, very well. I mean, I think it was very affecting. I think it was very powerful.
Yeah. Well, I'll go to Kalinowski on this next. Kalinowski, what did you think about how they kind of messed with his origin story a little bit, but then also seeing this relationship develop between Steven and Marc? You know, every time people get around Steven, the initial reaction, especially from strong-willed people, the initial reaction is to kind of dismiss him a little bit. But Steven is one of those kind of like nice battering rams that won't stop. He doesn't know when to stop, and he's going to eventually wear you down. And it's, Khonshu got into his corner before he got put into that thing, and now Marc gets into his corner by the end of the episode. So What do you think about how they handled all of this in their interactions and the progression of their relationship throughout, as well as the backstory?
I loved it. Just everything again clicked for me. And I'm trying to think about the parents, and usually it's in film and TV. We always see it's the dad, the abusive dad.
Yeah.
So that was a nice flip to put it with the mom.
Certainly in Marvel, it's always been the dad.
Yeah, it's always the abusive father. So this was a nice flip to see. So I like that. But again, it's fascinating to see. When I worked on Black Monday, I was Ken Marino's double. He plays twins. So they brought in an actor on the second season so that we did what they're doing on the show. So I'm very curious to see how they did this, because I did the scenes with Ken. And we had to do like rehearsals together. So I'm curious how they did this, if they would have just had another actor that he stood in, then they flipped the roles or what. But so that's fascinating to me from an acting standpoint to watch this episode and how seamless they blend it. But it's just like I love both characters in this episode, and I haven't loved Stephen Grant yet. Like, so I don't know if it was the emotionality that I connected with him. I'm very curious to go. I guess I should go back now and watch the whole thing, because I don't know what maybe invested him in this season. I mean, in this episode, as in the past, like I think the father dynamic, and again, like he didn't have much to say, but just was with. And this, I think Mohammed Diab direct this one?
Yeah, he directed this one. Yes.
Yeah, because this is it just hits, and the emotion beats. But it's fascinating to see. And again, like John, we talk about like picking and choosing from the history of the comics. This is something we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Like I've never really seen this. So for me as a fan of the character, this is something I'm kind of like, oh, I love this. This is great. So this is something the comics never did. Yeah. And they're not in costumes. They're not superhero action. And I'm totally invested. So it hits.
It's smart, isn't it? It's smart because
I think so.
I mean, comic book origin stories are a certain way because they fit for comic books.
Yeah.
Live action origin stories of superheroes from the comic books, you got to be smart to adjust some things to make it fit within the world you're creating within the series, but also within the world of the entire MCU. And I think they did a nice job with this, as they did with Black Widow, as they did with WandaVision, with Wanda and her kind of adjusting her story a little bit, even with the kids. They adjusted the story a little bit. I think it really works, and I like this. It's more human. It's more connectable. It's more it's more vulnerable, and people connect to that universally.
If you're saying and the humanity of it, but then so now I'm thinking back to like the Jacqueline, that first episode, the guy last episode. I'm like, it almost doesn't fit anymore. Like
interesting.
I don't. Yeah, those pieces. I'm kind of like, well, was that just to show the supernatural side of Moon Knight? Because the suit and the Khonshu does that.
Right.
So why are we getting these? Like, it's interesting, but a lot of questions now brought up. But hey, I'm on board though.
We did have a giant talking hippo and zombies coming out of the sand in this episode. So I mean, there's some weird stuff.
That's for sure. As Samson agrees. Shannon, thoughts on this relationship between Steven and Marc, but also these memories, right? I mean, you can, and please feel free to talk about the origin story in terms of the parents and all of this stuff that happened with his brother, but also we get to see some of these memories. We get to see him being there and reliving the death of Layla's father, reliving him dying, crawling to Khonshu's temple there. And we get to see all the room full of people, dead people there that he has killed, and he knows them by the city or the country he was in when he killed them. So, and he carries this weight, and the scales are balancing as he talks about how he wishes he would fail on these missions and that someone would put him out of his misery. So, what did you think about all of this as we saw more into the world of Marc and how that kind of developed some sympathy from Steven on his end for Marc?
Because I am known as like, the action lover. This virtually had no action except for the end. I mean, except for the folks from the Duat, jumping on the boat and attacking. But the psychological aspect of this, especially that moment where Marc is literally confronting his past, like it's sitting there in front of him, and repeatedly, like these things that are popping up, and how Harrow is the one who encouraged Marc to reveal this stuff to Steven, so Steven's personality would come out with Harrow. I thought this was all so well done. And again, like as you mentioned before, John, I was kind of in, kind of out on the show. Like there were definitely aspects that I liked, but there were things that I did not think that they were necessarily executing that well. Mohammed Diab did a tremendous job with this. And again, I can't overstate that. I wish there was a version of this show that we would have gotten to this sooner, because this is, thinking back to WandaVision, like there was very little action in WandaVision until the end. And I was so invested in WandaVision, and the same way with this episode. And thinking about that scene where Marc is outside the Shiva? Is that what it is, Vogel?
Yeah. Was that what it was, Vogel?
Okay. Outside the Shiva.
Sitting Shiva.
So there's a thing that when, as actors, that helps, and a lot of times this helps with auditions, is you think about what was the character doing immediately before. And so as the camera rolls, as you kind of launch into your audition, we're kind of catching them midway. And that makes for an interesting audition. Like it looks better on camera versus like you hear a starter pistol and then go. And the way that Oscar Isaac was able to, in front of our eyes, transform from grieving Marc to absolutely confused Steven was just such great acting. Like, you know, sometimes when he transforms, like there is that very cinematic way of, okay, that's how we know it's happened. Whereas this, it was different. Like there was just something so real and so raw and so palpable. And getting the backstory on where Steven got Later's Gators, that's something Marc used to say to his mom. And, you know, that relationship died. And it was just
something Randall used to say. I think Randall's the one who says it, not Steven.
Was it Randall? It wasn't Marc. Wow. So that hits even harder. Yeah, just the Marc Steven dynamic, which at the beginning, I know I wasn't that big on. I've really turned around on that relationship, and like it's been building. I mean, all the stuff with them in Egypt, I really enjoyed the reflective back and forth that they had. But in this one, it's really, you know, it was really powerful. And then to get that ending, you see sort of the potential fate of Steven. Wow, really well done.
Yeah, and you wonder if that's, and we'll get to the ending, of course, but you wonder if that's going to be the final bell for Steven or not. You know, is that the way you get rid of a personality in some way? You kind of kill it, and so you move on now more completely as you are. I wonder if they'll remove that. I can't believe that they will, but you never know. You know, if maybe they're opening the door for Jake now that Steven has moved on, and maybe Steven will make a return later down the road, or he'll pop up in the finale. We shall see. Let's pivot to Harrow. Shannon, I'll go back to you. What did you think of, first of all, Ethan Hawke's performance in this episode? As Michael stated, he was in this much more than he's been before. Or I think you said it, Shannon. Sorry. He was in this much more than he was before in the jumping in, jumping out kind of approach. And we saw him trying to get Marc to open up to Steven up to Marc. What do you think his end game is here? And we heard him talking about, you know, creating a castle, creating a place for you to place your memories so that you can deal with it. An organizing principle, a castle, a library, or in his case, a psych ward. And Harrow really starts to get through to Marc a little bit. But what do you think is Harrow's overall mission here? Because, I mean, he is kind of getting them to connect, getting them doped up to each other. Does he think he's going to be able to manipulate Marc in the end to get what he needs to get close to Ahmed, to open the tomb and do whatever? Or what do you think is Harrow's mission here through this whole episode?
I have no idea. I mean, and it's also, I mean, the mystery, like, I mean, it's been a very straightforward show. Like the mysteries were, you know, what made the personalities split. But also, I mean, now we've gotten, as we're in the asylum, it's like, okay, Towerit is saying he's dead. They're in the land of the dead, but he's also interacting with Harrow. And it's like, okay, is this a projection of Marc? I don't feel like it is. I mean, I do feel like Harrow has some sort of presence in Marc's head. I don't know, like he's not done that yet. So I don't know how. But the way that Marc is viewing him as a little more like I'm not seeing an ulterior motive here. Like with Harrow in the asylum, to me, I'm like, this looks like any number of psychiatric professionals that we've seen in television and film before, folks that really want to help their patients. Now, is there some ulterior motive to getting all of the personalities to come out? I don't know. I mean, when last we left Harrow, he was in the tomb. He was there. Like he hadn't released Amit yet, but it looked like the need for Marc was done. Hence the bullets. So
and he had that one line, Shannon, where he said, "I can't help people who don't want to help themselves." Right? He said that too after he shot him.
I mean, what if it comes out that Harrow was a good guy? Like Harrow's the Khonshu was really the villain. Harrow's the one that's trying to Harrow in the act of in the service of the other gods is trying to get Marc on this path. I don't think that's it. I don't think they do a full 180. But yeah, at this point, the reason like I got curious at the end of episode 4 was because of that crazy ending. Like, even though I didn't think it really matched up, I'm like, this is really fucking weird. But this episode, like, I'm so curious what the finale is, partly because I want to know if they can bring this to a satisfying conclusion, but also I want to know what the conclusion is.
Yeah, for sure. Vogel, go back to you on this, on Harrow. What did you feel it was what do you sense is his intention here? Because, I mean, he's been consistent throughout the series, hasn't he? It's like, I just want to help you, Marc. I want to get you out from under Khonshu. You're a broken man. Amit can be great things in the world. And once again, here he shoots him and says, I can't help those who want to help themselves. And then Marc's projection of him is essentially trying to get him to open up, trying to get him to see things that he's using, psychological terms that they've used to describe human behavior, to hide traumatic events from yourself. All these things, you would think this is about helping him realize how to be his true self and fully realized there as a person. Or do you sense there's something more nefarious here?
Well, I don't think this is Harrow. I mean, I don't like whatever's going on. Okay. Like I don't think that the Harrow that we've seen in the first 4 episodes is posing as a doctor in Marc's head and trying to get something happening. Like, I don't.
Well, let me pull out the question then and ask. Well, if it's a projection, why is he using Harrow in this way in his mind throughout this episode? I guess.
Well, so I don't know. I don't know. I think that there's a couple potential options. I think that maybe Marc is just kind of filling in these gaps to try and force himself to face some things, and he's using Harrow as an authority figure to try and push things. The other option is maybe Harrow really is a doctor in a psych ward, and that's reality, and everything we've seen up to this point is actually in Marc's head, and they're gonna pull a 180 on us and fuck with all of us and be like, no, this really was all in Marc's head. Outside guess, maybe this Harrow is really Khonshu. I think that, Khonshu, at least in the comic book that this is based on, was ultimately revealed to be behind everything that was going on and trying to get Marc to bring everything together. And, Khonshu says a really interesting thing in the origin that we see, where he basically says, I actually wrote it down, your mind, I feel it, fractured, broken, most fascinating. So Khonshu clearly picks Marc because of his fractured brain. And maybe Khonshu had some reason for wanting Marc to have separate identities, separate brains, and knew down the road that at this point he was going to have to bring Marc together. And maybe this is really Khonshu doing all of this to try and force Marc to be what he needs to be to step into his role as like the new and improved Moon Knight. So I mean, maybe that's an option. I think that whatever that Harrow is doing, it's either a projection in Marc's head, some other force like Khonshu, or he's really a doctor and it's all in his head the whole time. So who knows? But I don't think that this is a continuation. Kind of to Shannon's point, Harrow, and even in this episode, like, Harrow seems to be getting what he wants. Like, we go out into the underworld, into Duat, and we're seeing the boat, and we're seeing all the purple light come down. And we hear that all of these bodies are being judged before their time and being sent down. So I think Harrow's busy up there freeing Amit and doing his thing.
So all those all those bodies we see coming later on in the episode, those are those souls being taken out before their time. Wow, I didn't even catch that. Damn it. Okay, good stuff, Mike. Yeah. Okay, was that the end of your points?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Kalinowski, thoughts? What do you think Harrow's purpose is in Marc's mind in this essentially fever dream or whatever's going on with him as he's trying to come back to life from being shot with that bullet? What do you think Harrow's purpose is in this whole episode?
May I be frank?
Please.
I have no idea. I don't know what's going on with him. I don't, and maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the point of the writers. They wanted us feeling this. Like, we don't know what's going on with him. Because if I was Harrow and I needed him out of the way, I'd keep him in this fractured state as long as I can. I wouldn't try and help him.
Sure.
I wouldn't be trying to get him medicated to get better, because he, you know, Steven, every advice he's getting from him is fighting against. So I don't know. I would think he'd want him in this fractured state, so he's out of the picture. So Moon Knight, the avatar Moon Knight, is out of the picture. We have no idea what's going on with Layla. So is Harrow dealing with her in the real world? Are we in Marc's head? I don't subscribe to that this is all going to end up being in his head. I think he is real. This is, I think that. But again, with Harrow, like I liked him so much more in this episode than I've ever liked him in. I like Dr. Harrow over Soup Kitchen Harrow. It just works for me better. Like, you know, I don't like you said, he pops in with the cane.
As opposed to Soup Kitchen Norman Osborn and Soup Kitchen. Okay, I got it. Okay,
there we go. Yeah, it's true. Because there's just something about him. He's chewing the scenery.
I'm something of a soup aficionado myself.
Oh,
okay.
I can make soup. I'm something of a soup kitchen cook myself. But yeah, no, but I just have nothing but great things to say about this episode. But again, I have no clue, because everything about Harrow in the past that we've seen, Marc's out of the picture. He killed him. He's done. You know, so is he just going to rise up from the dead in that one tomb, and Harrow's going to be like, oh, damn it. So, but how is Harrow the main guy in his head? You know, has he always been in his head? Is it just happening right now? Again, I don't know. But again, maybe that might be the point of the show, is they want us on edge. They want us confused. They don't want us knowing what's real, what's not. Right. So, yeah. I don't have answers for that, guys. I'm sorry.
No, I think it's great, because I think that's good. I think writers actually love reviews where the guys are like, and the girls are like, I don't know what's going on, but I like what I'm seeing. I'm looking forward to seeing how they figure this out. Yeah.
I'm not going, well, God, what's going on here? Well, give me some answers. I'm like, okay, I want to know what's going to happen next. Let's go. Not like, all right, this is dragging me along. What's going on? This episode was a great one for me. Yeah.
And I remember, you know, when we talked about the second episode, the Soup Kitchen episode.
Yeah.
I think like one of the things that we said, or that I said at least, was that I actually loved that the way that Ethan Hawke was playing Harrow, he was being super helpful to Steven. Like he uncuffed him, he walked him around, he showed him around, he explained the Khonshu stuff, he explained the Marc stuff, and I said, I kind of love that he's being so helpful, even though he's the villain. And here we are again, episode 5, and Dr. Harrow is actually being very helpful. Like, everything he's saying to Marc or Steven is helping them work through their problems. So again, you have this villain who, on the surface at least, seems very helpful, and where that ends up, and for the why of it all, it's going to be really interesting to see where it lands on next Wednesday. Yeah, very fascinating. I like the use of Harrow here, and I think, you know, coming from my own point of view, right, again, with the therapy, but also, like, the desire to get better when you slide into the deepest of depressions, or you have a dissociative identity disorder, for some people, there is a piece of them that wants to live, that wants to figure this out. And I think Harrow is that piece of him that wants to figure this out, wants to live. And he's in essence using Harrow to confront himself as a vehicle to finally come out. You know, I've seen some people speculate that Harrow could be Jake. I don't know. But either way, I think it's great that you're seeing Harrow become in service of Marc, and Marc use that situation to maybe find his way back out of the sand or out of the water
as he is in now, which is ironic because, of course, his brother drowned, it seems like, climb out of this to be reborn again, as we know water symbolizes. So I think that was a great use of him. But yes, overall, I agree with my three compatriots. I have no idea what the purpose was of Harrow. We're all just speculating, but loved seeing him throw out these psychological concepts, having them have discussions about them so that the mainstream audience has an understanding of what these concepts are. And once again, in a kind of subtle way, destroying that stigma around mental health or seeing a psychiatrist or seeing a therapist, and that this stuff can be helpful to you if you commit to it, if you're really committed to it. All right, let's move on to this other stuff, and I'll start with you, Kalinowski. There was so much going on here with Egyptian stuff, with the underworld, with Tauret, with the idea of souls balancing the hearts, the souls taken before their time, as Michael alluded to, the ship, zombies coming out, attacking. What did you think about this? Oh, and of course, Marc becoming Moon Knight through Khonshu, using him in a moment of complete duress, and Steven saying, I forgive you because he took you when you were the most vulnerable, and I understand now why you did what you did. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's just hugging him. So what did you think about this whole Egyptian stuff throughout this episode as kind of a touching base with the Moon Knight stuff from the comic books?
Yeah, what I loved that the Egyptian stuff brought to this episode was the ticking clock.
Yes.
Like, I love a ticking clock in fiction. Yeah. Like it just adds the stakes. Like, they've got to get these hearts balanced. They got to go back into the ship. And that is constantly there. So I love that. And so that the way to wrap that up in the Egyptian mythology of the, was it the Field of Reeds that they're going to be taken to, and all that, like just brilliant. Like, I love that stuff was, and the flashbacks to, like, to me, that Moon Knight statue of Khonshu with the half moon, like that statue, that's Moon Knight to me. Like, that is the image that we see, and the Khonshu over there on the side. So the way that they were able to bring that in, add the ticking clock to the already fractured psyche of these two guys that have got to work together, that can't work together, just hit on all the right things. Like, him thinking like, I'll knock her out. There's only two of us, and I'll steer the ship and all this. And it's just like, you're on this boat. There's nothing you could do against her. You ain't going to do anything to her. You're on this path, the two of you guys, until you fix these hearts and the feathers and the hearts balancing. My whole thought though the whole time was like, oh, they need Jake. That's the third, his heart to balance. So I was clearly wrong because it got balanced eventually. But the way that then Steven takes over and he's able to fight as opposed to Marc. So again, for me, it all worked. Usually I'm finding so many critiques and finding the one thing I like. On this, I had so much I loved. I can't think of something I would critique.
What about Bush? What about dropping Bush?
What I love about that was is it Mohammed? I'm saying Mohammed Diab.
Mohammed Diab.
He had said he's like, we didn't do Bushman because it's too much like Killmonger, and I agree. Yeah. The mercenary, so I'm like, that was a smart play, but it's there. Yeah, it's there. It's in the mythology. They address it. They acknowledge it. So that's a nice. I don't want to say even an Easter egg, but it's something that maybe will come. He's there. He's in the world. Yeah. So he will. If we see Moon Knight again, he's absolutely going to be popping up again. So I think that's great. So nice way to thread it in. And as me as a fan, like John, it was a nice, like, we didn't get the full origin of it. Fine. They acknowledge it, and it's in the world of Marvel. As we know with Marvel, it's in the world. Doesn't matter if it's 5-10 years from now, it's coming in. So I love that about the MCU. I love that 250 million characters and all these things in these boards, and Feige's got it all, and he knows what he's doing. He knows where it'll pop up. So he was here for the presentation earlier today, and he said as soon as he was done doing the presentation, he was going back to meet with his Marvel team to keep planning out the next decade of Marvel movies. So just insane to think about how far ahead he is of everything to try to put this all together. My God, it's crazy. But also the other part of this, and Mike, I'll go back to you one more time. Because I was like, when he said Bushman, I stuck my finger out like DiCaprio. But like, we also see a taxi go by, if you guys notice, in the scene where he, like, that was a great allusion to Jake. So the creators of this show understand who the important characters are in the Moon Knight mythology. Absolutely. And they're just kind of laying the groundwork a little bit. It doesn't mean we may not be getting a second series, but it doesn't mean we won't get a Moon Knight feature film, right? What do you think? And I think, again, he's respecting the hardcore fans. Like, hey, it's there. We're not saying no. It's there.
Right.
We're acknowledging it. We've just had to tell this story. And I was talking to Harloff Christian this morning about this, and he's not a fan of Moon. I didn't know anything, but he's loving the show. And I think that Marvel did such a good job of making it palpable for people that don't know the character, because it is to explain it to someone, it's very hard to do. And, you know, he's this, he's got this personality. So, and again, he's respecting the past, but telling a new story. And that's what Feige and Marvel does so well, whether you love it or not, you know? Yeah. So,
yeah. And certainly Harloff has a second personality as Ralph Biscuits. So we know that very clearly. So we understand. Shannon McClung, you're the archaeologist of this crew. What did you think about all this mythology here with Egypt and Tauret? And we hear about the gates of Osiris. We see that ship. We see the zombies here. Is this all in Marc's head? Is he creating this, or Steven's head? Since Steven is more of the historian of the Egyptian mythology, was this a combo of both of their brains kind of working together to create this world and then navigate them back out of this world by the end?
I mean, gosh, I can't think that was a construct of their imaginations. Even though, like, everything in the asylum, like, I don't know what that is. I mean, conceivably, it could be all in Marc's head, but the moment that he pushes out those doors in the asylum and he's on the ship in the afterlife, the production design for Moon Knight has been fine. Like it's good. Like it's fine. There's nothing that's been mind blowing. There's nothing been like kind of shitty. Except for the moment when they go and meet the Ennead. Like that, I actually really liked how you know, through a wall just opened up. I thought that was cool as shit. And the same with this. I mean, the moment that we see what the Egyptian afterlife looks like, I mean, I thought that was the coolest thing. I mean, I know very little about Egyptian mythology, so I don't know how many liberties that they took. I thought the character of Tower was really, really fun. I did think it was funny that she sounded like a little English girl. But I mean, I can't remember the last time we saw a live action hippo effect. I mean, obviously there have been many hippos in animation, but just the way that the ears moved, I was like, that's such a great little detail. Yeah, I enjoyed all this, especially as they got to the gates. Is it the gates of Osiris? The gate to
Osiris.
The gates to our world, essentially.
Yeah.
What we saw, I thought was I thought it was just super, super cool. Like I'm glad that we finally got to a place where we could let the production designers really kind of stretch their legs a little bit and flex their creative muscles. And that scene with Marc and Khonshu, the eeriness in F. Murray Abraham's voice, which I thought was so sorely missing in the first episode. And maybe it's because at that point, Khonshu and Marc have a shorthand, but just this sort of cold, chilling voice. I mean, and just the visual of that statue, I was like, that is beautiful. Like, this is the type of thing I would love to see on an IMAX screen, because I bet that would look awesome.
Absolutely. And shout out to Antonia Salib. She is the voice of Tauret, and this is her first thing. So I thought she was really good doing the voiceover work for this, her first job. So Mike, thoughts? What do you think about what we got here? Was this a construct of Marc's mind or Steven's mind? Do you think this is real because they're in this tomb and maybe the mysticism of Egyptian stuff? You know, remember they're in Alexander the Great's tomb, the Macedonian stuff. Like, do we think this is a real, or do we think this is a construct in Marc and Steven's head? And what did you think about everything we got with Tauret and the Land of the Dead and the Field of the Reeds? Is that what it's called? The Field of Reeds?
That's what I thought, also looks like,
it looks like Smallville from Zack Snyder's Justice League. What did you think there, Mike, about that?
I think it looks more like Gladiator, but okay, we can go with Smallville.
Yeah, those were low to the ground. This was pretty high, like corn stalks in Kansas. I'm just saying. Go ahead.
I think, and again, I mean, it all depends on if everything is in Marc's head or not. But I'm assuming that the asylum is in Marc's head. Egypt and everything we've seen is real. I think they're dead. Like, I think what we're seeing is real.
You do think?
Because they're dead. Like, they got shot. And I think they got shot in an Egyptian tomb. You know, I mean, look, Taret is very clear on the fact that she hasn't done this in a while. Yes. So this has been a while, but I mean, I'm assuming if you died in an Egyptian tomb and fell in the water and you're tied and you're an avatar of Khonshu, it makes sense that maybe you would go to Egyptian heaven instead of some other heaven. I love the fact that Taret kind of pointed out that there's lots of planes of consciousness. We got a shout out to the ancestral plane from Black Panther. So like Marvel's being very clear that like basically all religions are real. Like basically what the Wakandans believe are real, what the Egyptians believe are real, like what everybody believes, like there are the different planes of consciousness and understanding. And whether you're Asgardian or Greek gods on Mount Olympus, like everything has a place in the MCU, it seems. But yeah, everything else they did, like I love that everything is basically 100% pulled from Egyptian mythology. You know, the Duat being where the underworld and where the unbalanced souls go, and the field of reeds being where you go if your soul is balanced, and the feather and your heart and the scales and Anubis doing that, and if you are unbalanced you get thrown overboard and you get fed to Amet. Like all of these things, like this is Egyptian mythology. But I love that they do their little tweaks on it. Like Taret, in addition to the character animation on that hippo being amazing, like Shannon said, I actually love that they gave her the voice that they gave. And she wasn't like some big sassy lady. Because like every time you do an animated hippo, everyone is like, oh, I'm going to be sassy. And I'm going to tell you little boys something or else. And I just love that she was this like adorable, like, all right, well, I guess we'll try this. It's amazing. It was totally different. And that's what made it unique. So I love that they're pulling straight out of the book of mythology, but giving their own spin to it. I think that makes it really that's what makes it kind of fun and interesting.
Yeah, agreed.
Mike, and to your point, and not to say anything, for me, and when you could see casting, like, oh, with this character, like, I could totally see like a Leslie Jones voicing it.
Yeah,
that's what and that's what, you hear it and you're like, oh my God, that'd be hysterical, it'd be perfect. But that's, I think, why they show at the casting where they flip the father-mother dynamic with that. I think they're doing such good stuff with this. Like they're breaking the norms of what you would come to expect on a show like this, and it works.
Okay, I like that. And also, just a quick thing to throw in for this consideration. Is that, remember in episode 1, and I'm giving credit here to the Ringer who was breaking this down a little bit that I totally forgot about. In episode 1, there was a girl, right? A young girl, and he was giving her the tour of the British Museum. And he was saying, Steven was, they believed you needed your heart to be judged in the underworld, and only the worthiest would be allowed to pass at the field of reeds. And the girl says, and did it suck for you getting rejected from the field of reeds? And he says, that doesn't make sense because I'm not dead. Am I? Am I? And he questions it. So, Michael, as you said, in the end, are we going to take the risk? This is an entire thing in his dreams. I don't know.
I mean, it's not like look, I do think that the real world is real and they're just fucking with us both ways. But but you know, Steven has a one-finned fish, and then we go into his memory and we see that his brother Randall was drawing a one-finned fish. So you're like, oh, well, that in his in the fish tank that he has is the boat that we're on at the end of the thing. So when he gets fired in HR, there's that little waterfall thing that looks suspiciously like the cave where his brother died. So you know, in either way you flip this, you know, we got to episode 4 and we were like, oh, when he was in the asylum, we saw this and we saw this and we saw this from the episodes. But when you go back and look at the episodes, there's an equal number of stuff in the episodes that we find in his memories. So that's where they're really fucking with us, where you're like, it could be either. I think we're all kind of thinking that what we've seen for the 4 episodes is probably the reality, because I don't know how you do it the other way and have it feel 100% satisfying. Right. But at this point with this show, who the fuck knows?
Yeah, but it's fascinating to see it all come together. I know that, and I've been enjoying the series for the most part, but I was kind of falling off a little bit until we made the jump. Right when we just made the jump here in the last episode to go into this episode, I was 100% now back on board. I'm curious to see how they're going to wrap things up. And I do want to ask one more thing of you, Michael, because you are, you know, Jewish. There have been some complaints about how the Shiva was handled, and how I saw this online from a number of people. They felt it wasn't 100% correct. did you feel, well, before we get to that, let's take a look at him in the field. That's pretty good, right? Let's say it looks pretty close. I'm going to put that out there.
You're going to get some crap for that, John. You're going to get some crap
Put up a shot of Gladiator. Put up a shot of Gladiator.
In the fields, I don't think there's a sun behind him. But anyway, what did you think about this? Did it feel authentic to you? Because, I mean, this was something that they were worried about. Are they going to go into the Jewish history? And this is the first time we got any kind of like real dive into the fact that he's got a Jewish backstory. I go to our resident Jewish person here on the Geek Buddies to tell me what you think about this situation. Is it authentic?
Shalom.
Did it feel real?
It's me, the resident Jew. Look, I'm no expert on sitting Shiva, but
okay.
I think that broad strokes, I think like representation is great. And I know that in the comics, Marc Spector's Jewish, and that's a big part of the comics. And so I think that like the fact that they made sure that that was a very big part of his story, like the fact that they were sitting Shiva, the fact that he has the Star of David around his neck, the fact that he's wearing a yarmulke when he's standing outside. So even though he won't go in to sit Shiva, he's still wearing the yarmulke. Like, look, did they get every single detail right? Like there was nothing that stood out to me, but also I'm not the expert on Judaism. But I would just say to the people that are like, that it happened wrong, or they didn't do it right, and this is so offensive, or this is upsetting, I'm kind of like, but I'm split on it because like I'd be curious to know what it was they did wrong. I'm always happy to learn what I don't know, and that includes my own religion. So I can't say, oh, those people, shut up, you're dumb. Like there might be stuff that would have been easy fixes that maybe there wasn't anyone who was an expert on Judaism on set, and they should have talked to a consultant and made sure they got it right. But to me, I just appreciate that they included a character that was clearly Jewish. Like I thought that was awesome and interesting.
Fair enough. Kalinowski, you were going to say something?
No, I'm just very curious, John, because I'd say from 2006
I'm just repeating what some people have said. Yeah,
his Judaism wasn't as prominent in the storytelling. It's a lot of the early stuff, but on the other hand, I have to think about it. So I was like, where there are people of the Jewish faith that they saw themselves as represented. And that was such a big part of the past of it. Like I look at something like Daredevil with its Catholicism, and I'm raised Catholic, but I couldn't tell you if it was done right or not. Again, I'm not
and that's how I am with
Catholic, but I am. But they did enough in Daredevil to know it's like, yes, they represented the Catholicism of Matthew Murdock. So again, to Mike, I don't know, but I think it was because people felt so powerfully represented by this Jewish character, and like there's only a handful of others, if that, in Marvel. Jewish, like Sabra, I believe was her name, because will be popping up eventually with everybody.
Kitty Pryde.
Kitty Pryde, there you go. Very good. But again, not addressed at all in the movies. Not addressed at all. Right. So I can, but
Okay. Any thoughts on this, Shannon? Any thoughts on the Shannon on the Shiva stuff?
No, I mean, my wife is Jewish, but I believe she and Vogel probably travel in the same circles of how much they know about the more would they be Orthodox elements?
I know more about Judaism than you do, McClung. You didn't even know you eat celery and matzah on Passover.
That is fair. That is fair for Passover. Kalinowski sent me a text. He's like, "Oh, so you're doing this tonight?" I'm like, "Nah, I think we're just having dinner."
And you show up there celery and matzah, and you're like, Kalinowski's right. Damn it.
No, I asked Shaney. I was just kind of like, hey, is this what we're doing? Because this is what Kalinowski thinks. She's like, yeah, that's what this is. I'm like, oh, well, look at that. The Polish Catholic was right.
Love. All right, let's go around the horn real quick before we wrap up. Real quick, because I know we're at an hour already. But thoughts, but I'm probably going to cut out some stuff here. Thoughts on what we think is going to come in the next episode. How do we think this is? Are we heading towards a massive look? It's because I asked this because the penultimate episode of WandaVision was also Agatha going through Wanda's memories. So do we think we're going to get what we've gotten most of the end of these Marvel series is the battle between good versus evil? Him and Khonshu and Steven and Marc and everybody else against and Layla against Harrow and Ahmed and their minions or her minions. Do you think that's going to be the end, or are we going to have something a little more character driven, a little more subtle for an ending. What do you say there, Vogel?
Probably be split down the middle. I think it's going to be really sad. I think we will kind of end up in some kind of big finale battle of some kind. But given what we've seen in the last episode or so, like I think it'll be interesting. I think ultimately I'm going to land, you know, Oscar Isaac has kind of said a couple times now that it's like a one and done. Like he's not like joining the MCU, that he's doing this. And I think it'll be a shame because kind of to the point that we were talking about earlier about not a ton of Moon Knight. Like I feel like these 6 episodes are a really great origin story to get us to know Marc Spector and Stephen Grant and potentially Jake. And see how they all sort of embrace each other and become this character who is this like awesome, fully fleshed out Moon Knight. But if we get to the end of the 6th episode and that's where he ends, and then we're like, well, that was lovely, we're not going to see him again anytime soon. That'll be a shame. So I kind of feel like we're going to get to the end of this and I'm going to love where we land and would like to see more. Okay. That's where I think we're going to end up.
Okay. Shannon, thoughts on where we'll end up on in the season finale? What do you expect to see?
I mean, the presumption would be that they would kind of blow the doors off with Moon Knight action. But I don't know. At this point, I might be a little more interested in the more cerebral ending because I feel like the action ball they've kind of dropped, and maybe that was the choice. But at this point, like all of the Disney Plus series, maybe for the exception of Loki, they all had kind of that big action-y episode. And while I did enjoy all those, I'm like, at this point, I'm like, I'd be interested to see him try something different, even though, to what Vogel was saying about like Oscar Isaac potentially not reprising the role in films or future series. Just from a design standpoint, I think the character looks cool. Look, it's just a cool looking character, and Oscar Isaac is a great actor. So I would love to see Moon Knight, you know, hang out with Shang-Chi and Sam Wilson. I mean, that's something I would love to see, but
yeah, it's like you would love to see a moment, and you've seen this in the comics before, where like now that we know what's going on and now that we know him, you want to see like all the Avengers who are left in a room with Mark, who then just starts talking to himself as Steven, who starts talking to himself as Jake, and everyone's like, what the fuck is going on? But we're all in on the joke. It's like, that would be such a great thing to get to. So we'll see.
Yeah, plus, I mean, if you throw, and you can throw him into a battle, like what's Khonshu and Mark and Steven versus Doctor Strange? What is that versus Wanda? What is that versus, you know, kind of existing in those planes as well, which could be really interesting. Kalinowski, what do you expect we'll get in the finale? What are you looking to see? What are you hoping to see?
Counterpoint here. I don't think making jokes at the mentally ill is, you know, appropriate. But hey, if we need a joke in the Marvel universe, we'll throw one in there at someone's expense. But anyway, no, guys, I need
really
to like
joke at someone's expense.
I know, but we are at the point of 250 minutes in 3 minutes of Moon Knight. There it is. There it is. Perfect. I mean, hey, John, when you're right, you're right.
Just
John.
trying to ease the tension. Just trying to ease the tension. Go ahead.
Like, I don't know. I kind of think, like, it's funny now with the Mr. Knight. I don't think we're seeing Mr. Knight again. I think he's done. I think that was a nod to the fans because they would want to see him. No. But what are we just going to see him in the suit fighting Harrow? Like,
I mean, look, I don't know. He's got to come out of there first, right?
I know.
He's still
You've got
in the land. The other
for
one.
love or hate the MCU TV shows so far, very few have stuck the landing. Even Hawkeye.
I think that's fair.
Even Hawkeye, it's like, oh, we wanted more Kingpin. We wanted more this. They rushed everything. Yeah. Every episode has been like rush at the end, and it's just you're like, oh, Sam. I mean, look at Winter Soldier. Falcon Winter Soldier. So much was rushed in that last second. You're like, how did that happen in the plot? Like, they get there. I have a feeling we're heading down that path. But to say that when Oscar Isaac had said he's not reprising Moon Knight, does he mean? I mean, when you see it does do a standalone. It is. They have not really, but I know so many people want like Daredevil with Spider-Man. Like, I think Daredevil and Chris and Charlie Cox with the Catholicism of Moon Knight, or Daredevil with the Judaism of Moon Knight, like them together. I think you have him accepting his Khonshu, where he's like, we're the protector of the people of the night, and that's my job, which will bring them into that Punisher, Daredevil odds, but they both have the same ideals, like they want justice, whereas Punisher and Daredevil have done that already. Let's bring that Moon Knight into it, and that, you know, I think that is such a disservice if we don't see him. I don't know if he blends in with Sam Wilson and them. Again, I didn't think Rocket and Captain America would blend in, but it worked. It was one of the funniest things in the movie. Yeah. So to see
I'd love to see Thor throwing some quips at Moon Knight. I'd love to see that kind of back.
Yeah. But I think that dark corner, you know, they're coming out with, what's it, Werewolf by Night is going to be a Halloween special. I think they're carving a nice dark corner of the MCU. Yeah. And it'd be a shame if he doesn't return, because the design is great, you know, and I would love to see next episode, see some action. But again, it's not a physical threat show. Right. You know, it's not. So maybe they were like, well, there's no point having him in the suit running around. It's not a physical threat. It's a mental thing. So I'm like, okay, you know, but I do love the suit. I do love him as the role now. It'd be a shame if he doesn't return. So
yeah, I agree. And just because he's not coming back in a Moon Knight series, doesn't mean he can't come back in a Midnight Sun series down the road or something like that. That's certainly, or a Midnight Sun movie. That's certainly possible.
That'd be great
as well. Yeah, I anticipate we're going to get a massive battle. I can't believe that they wouldn't lead to something like that, but I think there are going to be more surprises than we think, and who is going to be involved in this battle. I think I'm just guessing. So that's what I'm looking to see. And I think by the end, Marc will have come to terms with all the personalities, and he'll be completely Moon Knight, ready to be Moon Knight, knowing how he can use all the different personalities for the different situations as they pop up, which makes him an even more formidable foe and superhero for sure. So that's what I think we'll get next week. We shall see, but we will be covering it for sure. I don't know if we're going to do a live spoiler review, but maybe. We've been doing them for these Marvel shows. Maybe we'll figure it out schedule wise. We'd love to do it. But thank you all so much for joining us here on this spoiler review for Asylum, episode 5 of Moon Knight series 1, season 1. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's @geek_buddies, on Instagram at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung, on Instagram, it's Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is @MK2, and if you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is @TheRochaSays.
Mikey?
Look, if you like the grass in Smallville or the grass in Gladiator, we want you to stick around and see what grows here on the Geek Buddies. Here's how you can help us. Go ahead and smash that like button below. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Leave your comments below. Let us know what you thought. Did we miss anything? What do you think is going to happen in the finale? Do you think that we saw everything in Marc's head? Do you think this is really in the MCU? Like, what do you think is going on? Let us know your thoughts below. If you are listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere podcasts are available, leave us some stars, leave us some comments. It helps us go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing that you guys can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
Absolutely. And a big shout out to Mike Kalinowski for joining us again for this review. Mike, where can people find you and everything that going on, my man?
Social media, @Mike Kalinowski. That's where it's at, buddy. Come, yeah.
Okay. You got a book out as well, a James Bond book?
Yeah, my book.
Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, buy the book.
Buy the book. It's doing great on Amazon. Still in Barnes & Noble, signing them wherever I go. When Barnes & Noble, signing them for you guys. I am still working on it. I know I keep saying it, but we're just trying to. You ever guys try and ship something? That's expensive now. So I'm trying to find, because there's like media mail. There's a way to ship with books, and it's a deal with books to get it cost effective, because I'm trying to do cost effective stuff for people. Yeah. So I will have more info on Twitter. Yeah.
Authors in the audience, you got a little tip there from Mike Kalinowski. Absolutely.
There you go.
Thank you all so much. A big shout out to Carbon Health for supporting the Outlaw Nation and the Geek Buddies and sponsoring us here. We love them madly. Mike is pointing to them now. Go to carbonhealth.com and see if you got some issues going on, or you want to get a checkup, you want to get your health looked at. It's important to do that, especially as you're getting older, getting younger. You never know what it is that's going on with you. You want to go get checked out. And so you want to go to carbonhealth.com and see if there's a clinic near you. They also offer virtual care. If you can't get to a clinic physically, or if there isn't one near you, they do that for you. You can also go on the app. They have an app, a Carbon Health app, a doc in your pocket for any questions you might have. And they believe in creating some great healthcare programs for you and a healthcare specialist to work together to put you in a better frame of mind. Look, I've had 3 people comment on that I look a little bit bigger than the last time they saw me. So I'm going to have to go visit Carbon Health and get on the treadmill and work with a specialist as well. Yeah, well, it happens. It's life. But that's the thing. That's the thing. So I may be making a call to Carbon Health myself, get a full physical, get checked out, and I can do that at carbonhealth.com, and so can you. All right. Thank you all so much.
Johnny, don't read the comments, buddy. Don't read the comments, Johnny. Come on. You've been doing this long enough now.
Oh, it was in person. I wish I was reading them. Okay, thank you all so much for joining us for this live, not live, but the spoiler review episode, of Moon Knight. I got to get out of here. All right, you guys are the best. We love you madly, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new spoiler review episode here from the
Geek
Buddies.